Welcome to I Love This Thing So Freaking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I'm joined by Abigail the Nerd. Welcome to the show, Abigail.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, good, me too. So, here's how this works. Abigail will have 3 minutes to talk about something that she loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything she wants. Our only requirement is that she loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, Abigail?
Yes, I am.
Good. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so freaking much?
I love so freaking much the Disney fairies, those books about Pixie Hollow and Tinkerbell and the Pixie Hollow tree that all the fairies live in. Those were books from my childhood that were read to me, and I also would go to the library at school very often to get new books to learn about them. And those are characters that are just very near and dear to my heart because of that. My favorite character is Rainy. She is a water talent fairy, and she's got a couple of cute little quirks, like she tries to finish people's sentences. She doesn't always succeed on that, but because she's a water talent fairy, she's also highly emotional, so she's very in touch with her feelings, and I love her very much for that. Something that makes her stand out completely from every single one of the fairies at the Pixie Hollow tree is she is a wingless fairy. She gave up her wings so that she could swim down to the mermaid lagoon and get a mermaid comb for the dragon Kaito because he was causing some problems. So that book in particular, I love very much. It's called Fairy Dust and the Quest for the Egg. And that one really shows off Rainy's heroic personality, as well as just what she's willing to do to save the people she cares for. And that book is really nice as well because it's kind of like her origin story. And then we get to see in future books that center around her how she overcomes the challenges of what it's like living at a place where all the fairies have wings and she doesn't. So there's other books like Rainy and the Mermaid Lagoon where she runs away to go live with the mermaids. And I just love her very much, as well as her friend Prilla. And Prilla is a character where her talent was unknown. And they kind of play into that into the Tinkerbell movie where she tries to explore and change her talents. But Prilla, they couldn't figure out her talent. And what they found out is that she gets to go to the mainland when she dreams and she gets to speak with the kids and help them out. And so their friendship of Rainy and Prilla is very, very sweet because both of them are very unique characters as well. So it's also nice to see how their relationship works throughout the books and how the Pixie Hollow group accepts them, or in terms of the kind of antagonistic character Vidya, how she tries to push them away. So I love them very, very much. And I believe that's 3 minutes.
That's awesome. Thank you for telling us about the Pixie Hollow books today.
Thank you.
So you said that these books were read to you as a child, and it sounds like they really ignited your imagination. Do you remember what it was that first caught your attention about these books?
Yes, absolutely. What first caught my attention was the art style. So the illustrator for this book in particular is David Christiana, and the fairies are just so vibrant. Everything's done with like a certain watercolor effect, and the art's just so beautiful. So that's definitely what caught my attention first.
Did that affect how you imagined the characters? Because you had the images right there in front of you.
Oh, absolutely. It also affected how I pictured Tinkerbell because her art is just a little different, but just the more muted colors and her like softer features. She's a little less sassy in these books. She still got her sass, but it definitely changed how I saw these characters growing up, seeing them in other more known media.
It sounds like in creating these books, they must have taken an opportunity to expand upon, Tinkerbell is very much a side character in the main Disney canon, or just, an image. She appears flying over the castle in sort of theme park images. But now this is fairy society. This is a whole world.
Yes, and Tinkerbell in particular is a very fun one within that world because she is explored quite a lot. She's like the most talented of the Tinker talent fairies. And so she fixes things. And I know they explore that in the movies, but in the books, they give her so much personality. Like she's a very stressed out person. It's very funny. She like tugs on her bangs when she's stressed. So it'll like put in the book, she's tugging on her bangs right now.
I noticed that with talking about these books, you didn't jump to talk about Tinkerbell. I don't even think you might mention Tinkerbell at all in those first 3 minutes. You were mostly talking about Rainy.
I was very, very attached to Rainy when I was little. I have a very soft spot on my heart for her. She is a character I really identified with. And they also had merchandise for the Disney fairies, and they had Rainy and Prilla dolls, and I had those. So they were little dolls that I brought everywhere with me.
Would you like tell your own stories with the dolls about the fairies?
Absolutely. Except, when little girls play with their toys, they make like soap opera dramas. So they were absolutely not canon.
I mean, from what Lily told me about the plots of these stories, it sounds like it's certainly dramatic anyway, where you have whether or not these fairies are accepted by each other because of their talent, or you have to give up your wings in order to save a dragon and dive down to the mermaids. There's a lot going on here.
You know what? You're right. You're right. That's probably where I got my dramatic flair from.
Talk a little more about the world of the Pixie Hollow books.
They're in Neverland and they live at the Pixie Hollow tree. And that tree is their entire society. They are run by the queen, as well as there's Mother Dove, and she's just a very matronly dove. And when she molts, her feathers are used to make pixie dust. So if something's happened to Mother Dove, then they won't have pixie dust, and all the fairies will not be able to fly, as well as Mother Dove holds the power of Neverland that keeps everyone young. So in the book Fairy Dust and the Quest for the Egg, the big thing is her egg that she has was cracking during a storm, and Mother Dove got hurt. And because of that, Captain Hook starts getting sore in his joints, and Peter Pan loses a tooth, and he's getting taller.
Oh no.
So it's interesting, like the lore of how it all goes into Neverland and how that magic works.
Two things are coming to mind for me here. One, for some reason, I don't think I ever thought to question where pixie dust comes from. It just was always a thing. And like now I have an answer, and that's very interesting. And the other thing is, wow, the stakes are really high in this series.
The stakes are so high in this series, and then sometimes they're really not. There's some books where like one of the plant talent fairies plants a plant that people don't want her to plant. They're very mixed in what the stakes are. The pixie dust is a very interesting thing. They even have pixie dust talent fairies that work at the pixie dust mill, which makes sure that everyone has their fair share of pixie dust.
I think the wide range of stakes in these stories, it's kind of reflective of childhood, because certainly there will be times where the biggest problem in a kid's life that day is, I have the wrong toy, my birthday's not going exactly the way I want it to. And then there are times where kids have to, face mortality.
Absolutely. I definitely think these books are used with these fairies being reflections of childhood experiences. For example, Rainy, she doesn't have wings, so she feels very left out from some of the issues as well. But it gives her the ability to swim, which is something fairies can't typically do. So she gets to excel at something, but she still has to deal with the potential loss and grieving that loss of her wings and that part of her identity, which is something that I definitely identified with as a kid with a chronic illness that needed to be like diagnosed and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think these books were made with the intent to reflect childhood and to help little kids learn these new experiences through a fantastical way.
It sounds like it was written with a lot of respect for the kids, that the kids would be facing issues and having big questions. Like there is no age that is too young to face these big questions and face these big problems. So we might as well start talking about it and might as well do it in a fun way.
They absolutely do respect their audience and treat their audience as complex little human beings, which is what children are. They know that kids are capable of taking these difficult topics and understanding them. I mean, we see it now with like Bluey, that kids can understand a lot and kids go through a lot too, because life still happens when you're a child. And I do love media that acknowledges that.
Is there anything that you don't like about the Pixie Hollow books? And if so, how do you handle that?
I don't remember not liking anything in particular about it. The main thing I didn't really like is that Vidya was always an antagonist until she had her own books. She's a selfish character, and I mean, kids can be very selfish, so she's a good reflection of that. but they give her no redeemable qualities until her book. And I know that they like kind of fix that in the movies where they try to give her some more complex characteristics. I think she's the only thing where I'm just like, man, I wish they could have made her just a little more likable during the main books where she's a main character in some of them.
Yeah, especially since we were just talking about how these books are surprisingly complex and interesting and respect the intelligence and perspective of the reader. It sounds like you've zeroed in on this one point of not complexity where, oh, here is the one flat character. That stands out. I don't want that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's kind of a small gripe because there's, oh my gosh, there's so many characters, and so many of these characters get their own books and spotlights throughout it.
Abigail, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn more about the Pixie Hollow books or our guest Abigail, you can find her social media information in the episode description. And if you have something you love so freaking much you want to tell me all about it, consider this your invitation to join the show. I Love This Thing So Freaking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed and edited by Sophie A. Katz. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU the Window at all those social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.